Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are on volume 63. Not sure why. Why are we pumping the volume? I don't know. Anyways, welcome to the show, everybody. We are back, and I hope you missed me. I hope you missed the jams. I hope you're getting so addicted to the jams that you were getting withdrawal. We got some stuff going here. Hold on. Okay, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's just get to the show, okay? Oh, boy. Here we go.
Water's well, Sam. I've never seen the like of this before. Get me a lug. I'm going down to get him. He's come up.
1833, 1834, years before the California gold rushes began. Near this spot, in 1886, a spearfish stonemason named Louis Thone found what he...
On the launch pad is Apollo 13, bound for the moon. The countdown unwound.
We have ignition sequence start. Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2. All engines running.
We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13.
Operate the equipment. We'll start with the simplest and most common terms. All matter is made up of electrical charges, from the smallest atom to the largest building, from the lightest gas to the heaviest solid.
Better known as the prophet
All matter consists of charged particles that are positive or negative.
According to legend, a document containing
The mystery of gold ended when a military expedition led by General George A. Custer explored the Black Hills in the summer of 1874. Sent to locate sites for military posts, Custer allowed civilian prospectors to join the expedition, and they found gold. The early...
With an artist.
Nostradamus had foreseen
Positive and a
this,
negative charged
the moment of
object
his...
will attract each other, or two unlike charges.
The relaxed routine was shattered. Apollo 13 was shuddering violently and failing to respond to the controls. It was the beginning of an epic of endurance and ingenuity, which was to test the nerve of mission control and its 3 astronauts to the very limit.
Couple of sprung plates. That mess on deck, 3 or 4 days. And we're out of fresh water.
Let's go ashore and see what they've got.
Deadwood's first big gold strike. Historians will probably never agree on the answer to that question. Perhaps it was here. Consensus places the first big gold strike near the mountain.
Or negative charges. We will be dealing with moving charges called electrons. Electrons are negatively charged. Electrons come from a generator or transformer. A generator develops power and a transformer converts power. They both move the negative electrons. The force of the electrons is called voltage. Voltage is the initial force
5 hours
or
later,
pushing
Gemini's
power of the
commander,
electrons.
Neil Armstrong,
It is
began the
measured in
docking
volts.
maneuver.
Current is the rate of the movement, or flow.
Gemini's nose into a docking collar
Current can
mounted
either
on a
be
genome.
AC or DC.
Sayer and a heretic. Indeed, the Inquisition doled out a similar fate to both. Prophets were arrested and burned at the stake. This was the climate of persecution in which Nostradamus practiced his strange arts. Indeed, his interest in magic his ecstatic trances, his writings and predictions, all might have doomed a lesser man. But so renowned was the mastery of Nostradamus that the nobility was able to protect him from the Inquisition's wrath.
Nostradamus walked a tightrope between religious correctness of the 16th century and getting himself burned at the stake.
In command was the 42-year-old Jim Lovell, who had orbited the moon in Apollo 8 and had logged nearly 600 hours in space. Accompanying him were two rookies, 36-year-old Fred Hayes and 38-year-old Jack Swigert, a last-minute replacement for astronaut Ken Mattingly, who had been grounded after being exposed to German measles. Mattingly was at mission control to watch Apollo 13.
Capacitance buildup is often seen as a spark or felt as a shock. A very important term you will often use is grounded. To be grounded is to be connected to Earth so that the electrons can flow from the object through a connection to the Earth. This is the symbol that represents an object that is grounded. One way to better understand electrical terms and movement of electrons is to relate an electrical system to a hydraulic or fluid pumping system. A pump is immersed in fluid, and the fluid is forced out by pressure. The pump pressure forces the fluid through the hose at a fluid flow rate. It will flow through the hose and out the...
Yeah, I can see the S4B now at the hatch window.
Couched in four-lined rhymed verses called quatrains.
When the valve is restricted or turned down, the fluid is restricted.
Monitoring every move from Houston was Flight Director Gene Krantz.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
When the crisis broke, Krantz galvanized his team into action. After the bang aboard Apollo 13, Mission Control's monitors told a tale of imminent disaster. The spacecraft was losing fuel, pressure, and temperature.
Details of the French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon and Hitler.
By a meteorite.
Volume 9, Quatrain 90 declares,
In
1937, an infernal power.
13 minutes after the explosion, Jim...
Want to do open circuit fuel cell 1 and 3? Because of AC, and it looks to me you're looking at the
system. It's the friction of the hose and the restriction at the valve. With electrons, it's the resistance of the cable and the resistance in the line that determines the electron flow.
Mission Control was now facing the unthinkable. Losing astronauts...
Electrons will accumulate or build up on any conductive object in the
Earth. He wrote of the very month when the world will come to a cataclysmic end.
In the year 1999 and 7
Served
months,
as a Union
the
Army
great
scout
king
in Missouri during the Civil War. After the war, Hickok tried
to life, the king of the Mongols. Before and after, the god of war reigns happily.
If Nostradamus
The
proves
bravery or cowardice of the gladiator was cheered or jeered by the crowd, who voted with their
standing at the
hands.
threshold of the end of time.
According
When he reached Deadwood in 1876, however, Hickok was hardly Western legend material. Hickok was in financial trouble, and his eyesight was failing. He said he came to look for gold, but there was no evidence that he ever mined. Hickok was prospecting in a car when Jack McCall killed him in Nuttall and Mann's Saloon number 10.
back room to try to figure out what the equivalent delta V is we're getting so that we can see if we can backtrack to see.
Confusion begins with the location of Hickok's death. A popular local watering hole calls itself Saloon number 10. Several businesses up and down Deadwood's Main Street use varieties of Hickok's name.
Over the centuries, the Colosseum became a marble quarry, looted by the would-be Caesars of each new age. But the triumph of its engineering has kept it standing, a haunting symbol of the Roman Empire at its most exalted and its most depraved. Centuries after its completion, an English monk, the Venerable Bee,
LEM, now attached to the command module and crippled service module. Could its small engine be used to nudge Apollo 13 onto the course needed? Fred Hayes had played a key role in designing the LEM. Hard on the decision to use its engine came another. The crew could not survive the return journey in the command module. The LEM would have to become a lifeboat. But it had been built to hold only 2 men and to perform for only 40 hours. Now its systems would have to be extended to sustain 3 men for nearly 4 days. Guided by mission control, the astronauts put Odyssey into a kind of hibernation and transferred all the guidance controls to the LEM computer.
This device, we hope... Tell me, Flight. Go ahead, Flight. I want you to get...
Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert were now crammed into the lunar module Aquarius, attached to the dormant command module Odyssey. Apollo 13 had started as a mission of scientific exploration. It was now a fight for survival.
Watching a movie editing session. It's, you know, there's a piece here, there's a piece there. Some of it runs in a nice sequence, usually it doesn't. And trying to put the pieces together in a way that makes sense can be kind of mind-boggling. It's very fast. The images just fly through my mind.
Meyer has no prior knowledge of the case or the people involved.
She's a very friendly, outgoing kind of child, very open child. And I do feel that she had talked to him on at least 3 previous occasions, but nothing in detail.
to come home.
By now, Houston had devised a maneuver which would give the astronauts their best chance of survival. They would go for a brief burn before Apollo 13 reached the moon, placing it in the so-called free return trajectory. This would be followed by a second burn to drop them into the slot for re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. 5.5 hours after the blast which had crippled Apollo 13, the astronauts prepared to fire Aquarius descent engine in a 31-second burst.
He needs to put his throttle to min also, Mike. Throttle to min.
Jim Lovell takes up the story.
This maneuver again was completed on time, and because it was a manual burn, we had a 3-man operation. Jack would take care of the time. He'd tell us when to light off the engine, when to stop it. Fred handled pitch maneuver, I handled the roll maneuver, and I pushed the buttons to start and stop the engines.
Being directed at the grounded object, the negative electrons flow off of the tip and move towards the positively grounded object. As they move towards that grounded object, they collide and bump into the neutral air particles, causing them to split, bounce, and move. This whole reaction of electron movement of charged particles is again known as the ionization field. The negative electrons in a ionization field will be attracted to the closest grounded object. This attraction will complete the circuit. The negative charge...
When I realized, I guess, that I was a smoker, I guess I was kind of concerned, sort of, about my health, thinking that, well, my grandma has lung cancer.
In 1876 was Solomon Starr. Starr was one of Deadwood's successful Jewish...
that at its height in the 16th century extended some 2,500 miles, the most powerful in South America.
And was 6 times elected its mayor. Starr had plenty of company. Harris Franklin, namesake of the Franklin Hotel.
Hello. Please, come in.
He began to speak out loud.
Meanwhile, conditions on board the LEM were deteriorating. The astronauts' most dangerous...
Did you catch that? Writing with a pen at the same time, switching back and forth. My goodness.
Stock market crash of 1929. the timing and duration of World War II,
How do you know all this?
It's my business to know.
Why did you want to see me?
The agreement. Well, surely you remember.
No, not really.
Of Main Street, Deadwood's Chinese host team took part in the annual company competition. To a considerable extent, Chinese brought their own culture to Deadwood, but they were many Chinese in the 80s all gone by the First War era.
These monuments in stone, enormous granite blocks so precisely fitted that not even a penknife can pierce the cracks. Calling them sekuska, weary stones. Once on the site, the stones were fine cut and laid into place. As many as 40 angles would be carved in one.
Developed
wall. The temple sun.
The event came
After the burn, Lovell began to power down the lem to conserve
was an Inca the Andes.
While on the unexposed dark sides, the temperature plummeted. Unable to don their spacesuits in the lem, the astronauts were cold,
falling prey to 5 centuries of jungle weather.
Overalls turned slimy and freezing to the touch.
the campaign was now in high gear. As the crucial California primary approached, Bobby Kennedy was looking good in the polls.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
May 25th, I woke up with a dream in which Robert Kennedy was being shot. In the dream, he was walking with some young people, walking down a hallway, and they were planning to go to a party.
Or tethering place of the sun.
Johnny's fame spread far and wide in his last years.
Vaughn tried to get a message through to the Kennedy campaign, to no avail.
It's like when you're a baby.
Just 10 days after the dream, on the night of his victory in California, Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
In retrospect, I used certain people to work. And it wasn't actually until
the ionization field.
I started to grow up that I realized that I wanted
feeling I
more
ever had
people
in my
here.
life. It was like I was guilty. It was
All
my
the
fault.
paint is divided or
Wanted other
atomized.
people to come to work.
But as the news came in, I was able to compare it with the dreams, and there were a dozen.
And I had isolated myself in
Point of view, this was really good evidence.
ways that I did it. I remember realizing
Might a better understanding of the hidden workings of the mind give us the...
Kill each other, creating additional
smoking.
Also some more serious efforts to preserve the town's heritage.
The Rhine Institute of Parapsychology is in Durham, North Carolina. Its director is Dr. Richard Broughton. He's convinced that there is a scientific basis for prophecy and other extrasensory powers.
My feeling is that if ESP is a human ability, then by definition, we all have it to some degree. You know, we all have intelligence of some degree, but we all can't, get PhDs. So it is something we all have, but we're going to see.
Jim Lovell put it succinctly.
In a situation like that, there's only one thing you can do.
Inhibited system.
You just keep going.
Available in both manual
Get up where you can get more consumables.
with voltage ranges up to 135,000 volts.
I really want to quit this time.
I think I'm gonna have to quit because it's so much money. It's a waste of money. I mean, I'm burning my allowance on it. Money for movies goes towards cigarettes. It's something that I really don't need right now. I don't have the income. I can't keep it up for it to be something pleasurable. It's more like, wow, I've got a pack of cigarettes. That's what I'm gonna do all weekend, sit around and smoke my cigarettes. I mean, it's a little strange.
Well, I had a bad cough, and it kept getting worse whenever I had a cigarette, and it started tasting awful. So it wasn't any fun anymore. So I stopped.
It took me a long time to quit because I smoked for over a year, and in that short space of time, I got really addicted. So it took me like almost another year to quit.
Well, my family was really proud of me when I...
World War II.
And,
Wood. An order from the federal government closed the gold mines in the Black Hills. Deadwood was declared off limits for a time to military personnel.
On the other side of the world, a new emperor scratched a man-made line of rock across the face of the earth. As if to say, even to the gods, here is my land.
To survive. Well, of course.
And everybody had a down attitude.
Anymore, she'll snap the cable. Drop your nets! Drop your nets! Drop the nets! All hands on nets. Hurry on. Lift you up, take it up. Sam, the nets. Drop it. Drop it.
Now it was time to celebrate at Houston.
At that time, China was in chaos. Warring states waged battle on one another and fought off nomadic tribes that invaded from the north.
The town was set.
Over hundreds of years, a succession of earthen walls had been built, stretching between mountains and along valleys in vain attempts to keep out hostile neighbors. But in the year 221 BC, one man unified China and proclaimed himself her first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi. In his brief 12-year reign, Qin Shi Huangdi linked together thousands of miles of old walls in a massive military defense against the Huns.
A spectacular blaze destroyed the town's syndicate block of 1880s vintage buildings in 1987. Structural defects left the Lawrence County Courthouse condemned. The years and fate, it appeared, might yet destroy Deadwood. But, in the immortal words of Mark Twain, the reports of Deadwood's death were premature. On the 1st of November 1989, legalized gambling came to Deadwood, and the old town was off and running again.
Farmers. In its protective shadow, traders ventured along road heading westward, a journey over what came to be known
Of water, I see. This is most important.
of the Orient to India, Persia, and Rome. The Chinese emperor wrote, "Now the common people are passing fear of war, land, while women likewise are engaged in their work."
Develop some very detailed drawings of the location that a person might be held in, or the location of, say, a missing body or something. But the problem is, even with a detailed drawing, let's say it was a drawing of a trailer park. There are how many trailer parks in America?
He needs the date and time the little girl disappeared.
Clamped into iron collars, they were dispatched to far-flung provinces to haul dirt. One chronicler wrote, "Ditches on the roadside were filled with corpses of men who had been forced into construction of the Great Wall. Men could no longer be found. Those joined the march."
To go back to the sea.
Shoe or sock or something. She was taken by force. She didn't have any idea who her kidnappers were.
Joe was a remote viewer for the CIA.
Mr. Joseph McMonagle received a Legion of Merit Award, which was given in part for providing invaluable information with a novel intelligence gathering technique, which was briefed at the highest levels of the executive and congressional branches of our government.
In the throes of the Cold War, the CIA received alarming information that the Soviet Union was turning to parapsychology as a source of exotic espionage. At CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, Operation Stargate was born. A team of U.S. government psychics spent 20 years and $20 million visualizing everything from the identity of KGB agents to the design of top-secret enemy submarines.
Everybody has heard the term electrostatics. In our everyday
In
lives,
1980,
personal and business,
the CIA's psychics were asked to find out where
do we
Iranian
really
terrorists
understand
Miles around, overlooks the ocean like the head of a dragon snaking down to the sea.
1989,
25 feet
to
deep,
provide
protects
information
the
about
state,
fugitive
called the
President
first
Manuel
well
cover
Noriega.
the electrical portion of a system.
They were
and
asked to
present
provide a layout of the
electrostatics in
interior of
everyday
Noriega's
common
home.
language.
The psychics delivered a top-secret report showing both the rooms and their contents. Finally, in 1995, the CIA went public.
There was large media attention when the CIA finally announced their findings, and ESP and the use of it in the government are ripe for ridicule. Our project, however, really survives best with responsible criticism. We enjoy skeptics. In fact, if we can't find them, we'll hire.
A bit.
Years of research, ESP
And you turn it into a circus freak. It's outrageous. Quite apart from the fact that you stole it.
And serves similar needs to
Up to 7.6 million pounds of thrust, and it has cleared the tower.
I stole some of my brother's cigarettes and went out to the front of the house, hoping that she'd catch me, and she didn't.
My best friend smoked, and everybody I hung around with smoked, so I kind of got into it to feel accepted.
You have all these teenagers around you, they don't know anything either, but you're looking up to them because you have nobody else to look up to. And so you think they're the answer. They look great, so you want to look like them. So you take the cigarette.
There was a certain place at school where everyone who smoked hung out. You didn't even have to talk. You could just ask for a light or a cigarette. I hated the first one, but it became part of my routine, of who I was.
I remember it vividly. It was my very first day of grade 9, and I was called down to the guidance counselor for guidance and counseling. I sat across the desk from this ancient woman, and she said to me,
"Now, Sandra, what do you want to do with the rest of your life?"
Big question for a 14-year-old. But I actually had an answer because I had always loved archaeology. So I
Summer of 1875.
I would like to be an archaeologist.
But instead of stretching across the landscape, this wall encircled a small city.
For a while, they failed to find Deadwood's gold. And then, as winter snows gathered in the fall of 1875, the big strikes were made in Deadwood Gulch and along Whitewood Creek. Who made Deadwood's first big gold?
Now you see the circus grounds at Battersea Park in the Festival Gardens, where Gorgo, as he is called, we don't know why, will be exhibited to the public. Here we can see the intrepid Captain Ryan, the one with the cap, getting out of the car with his partner, Mr. Slade. They are the men who captured the animal, and I don't envy them the job. And our own Mr. Dorkin of Dorkin Circus in the checkered suit. And by the way, we'll be interviewing Mr. Dorkin shortly at Battersea Park, so stay with us.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I realized at once that this was the most shattering scientific discovery.
When I started high school, I felt like such a nobody. I didn't like the way I looked, and I was always worried about what other people thought of me. But when I had a cigarette in my hand, I felt better. I thought I looked good.
Okay, everybody, welcome. Welcome to the show. If you're just joining us, this is the intermission, the halfway mark. And if you've been watching from the beginning, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you. We can't thank you enough. The last stream actually got like over 250 hits on the videos page, so that's pretty sweet. Oh, we got some wow, up to 10 hours battery life. How about that? Stamina. All right. Anyways, yeah, I hope you're enjoying the show. We're just making a few tweaks here as we go, as we normally do. And yeah, I'm just going to be showing a little bit of what's happening here. And yeah, look at that feedback. Look at that feedback loop. And I hope you're enjoying this one here, the capacitance, electron buildup storage surge tank. All right. Spark shock. All right. Okay. Back to the show, guys. Okay. We got some astronaut stuff here. Some of it we got some old computers. Here, hold on. Look at that. Old computers. We got some old horse and carriage stuff here too. And we even got an old building castle here. I'm not sure what that is. Could be Big Ben. No, it doesn't look like it. Looks like Russian or something. Maybe Chinese. Probably Chinese. Anyways, okay. I'm going to stop yapping and continue the show.
Less than half of his 600,000 troops survived their winter retreat. Hundreds of their cannon, abandoned in the snow, now stare back defiantly along the walls of the building known as the Arsenal.
They pulled Aquarius away from the Saturn third stage, the S4B.
Okay, I can see the S4B now at the hatch window.
Accused of fraud. Eventually, he dropped out of the limelight.
Trop souvent.
Demonstrations for the media.
Known as the cable.
I suggest we leave it the way it is.
It's a really big gold rush in the lower 48 states. The Black Hills Rush was the grand finale of one of the most colorful chapters in Western.
Designed by Fioravanti of Bologna, sits in simple monumental form beneath 5 golden cupolas. Here the Tsars of Moscow were crowned. Inside, some of Russia's most sacred icons stand watch.
Legend among Deadwood's early residents was one James Butler, Wild Bill Hickok. In life, Hickok's impact on Deadwood was virtually non-existent. He arrived in Deadwood.
I'm a huge fan of Wild Bill. I went to Deadwood when I was 10 years old, actually, and this would have been back in, I don't know, 1993.
Wild Bill Hickok was an American legend when he died in Deadwood August 2nd, 1876. Born in Troy Grove, Illinois in 1837, Hickok drifted west in the years before the Civil War. Hickok served as a Union Army scout in Missouri during the Civil War. After the war, Hickok tried a variety of jobs. He served as a lawman in several Kansas cattle towns. Eastern writers wrote exaggerated stories of Hickok's exploits on the Kansas frontier. Brief stint on...
His sarcophagus lies next to that of his son, whom Ivan killed with his own hands. But the legacy of Ivan the Terrible was not exclusively evil. He commissioned the building of St. Basil's Cathedral just outside the Kremlin wall. 9 fantastic domes, no two alike, rise above Red Square.
Converted with a transformer from AC to negative DC current. The negative electrons can then be pumped to an isolated surface. This isolated sphere will build up with the negative charges. We now have a negatively charged object. The electrons will align themselves on the surface and try to break loose. These negative charges repel each other. If you want to attract negative electrons to a surface, you would have to make it charged positive or grounded.
I'm unable to explain. Even though I was right there, I cannot explain. I don't think any other musician could explain what he has done.
But Richard Wiseman, who has performed hundreds of experiments with people claiming psychokinetic power,
were Tsarevich Peter, the first Romanov, watched his family murdered before his eyes. At only 10 years old, he was forced to share the throne with his half-brother, quite literally a dual throne, while his half-sister Sophia
McCall's executed
herself and whispered
from the
instructions to the young Tsar, who, in 1712, put an end to the Kremlin intrigues by moving the capital.
Deadwood legends. Various biographies of Jane have only created a mass of confusion about her early life. Facts about her birthplace, family, education, and early life have never been positively established. After making it to Deadwood in the summer of 1876, Jane worked as a prostitute. She did spend most of her later years drunk and destitute, drifting in and out of Deadwood until her death at the nearby mining camp of Terry, August 1st.
But the extravagance of life in the Kremlin could not survive the deep dissatisfaction of a restless underclass. After the revolution of 1917, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin founded a new socialist republic. The following spring, he moved the capital to Moscow.
Because I had lung problems and heart problems and eye problems.
This and Congress Hall, severe realist style, stand in marked contrast to their ornate neighbors. Here, too, were the Spartan living quarters of Lenin.
Choice as Lawrence County's first sheriff, but he seldom wore a pistol. Seth captured stage robbers and foiled jailbreaks, but his role as a sheriff was just a tiny part of the real Bullock story.
Self-conscious, I guess you could say, about telling him I did, because I knew that's why I had bronchitis. And
It's the Tsar's double eagle. Busts of Lenin replaced the
at Devil's
saints, and the tomb became a site of holy pilgrimage for the faithful. Even today,
regularly organizes firewalking ceremonies. Firewalking has been adopted by several new age groups. It's also used as a motivational tool in self-help seminars.
I tell people to pay attention to their intention because we create everything in our lives from what our intention is. If we're clear on that intention, then we can create what we want to create. If we know what it is we want.
McDermott is absolutely focused when he firewalks. Everything but the fire
continues to capture the hearts of the Russian people, not only for its beauty, but for what it holds in trust, their memories and their hopes.
Some people apparently are able to go through the ceremonies and not suffer harm. Gives us the exciting possibility that whatever this capacity, whatever this potential is, it lies within all of us.
While there are many modern examples of trance-induced states, they pale by comparison with the altered states of consciousness seen in traditional cultures. Trance states, whether for prophecy, healing, or mind over matter, seem to be a universal feature of psychic power.
The ethnographic record leaves absolutely no doubt that in most societies of the world, the desire to invoke some technique of ecstasy, to soar away on the wings of trance, to get into some kind of distant
was the king at the lavish appointments of his subordinate chateau, that the king imprisoned him and looted his home. The booty would soon find its place in a new palace that Louis ordered built.
Nepal and Bhutan, people have long practiced the ancient techniques of yoga and meditation.
Lodge here.
Indian holy men,
Versailles would be the new
sadhus,
court of France.
may spend years in quiet contemplation.
For a long time, you'll only notice a slight cough, a shortness of breath, hardly a bother at all.
About strokes, heart problems, cervical cancer. This is awful.
You really should have read the fine print.
I never signed this.
Just a formality.
You can't hold me to this. You can't hold me to something I never signed.
Okay, we're okay. Fly, tell me it. We're go, fly. Inco okay?
Control current is restricted by the main gun resistor.
For accurate measurements of stress.
Certainly try.
Roger. Shut down. Roger.
To study the previously secret
It's a power.
yoga.
Very low. Less than...
Went to the experts. Tibetan monks who were in legend
allegedly able to dry icy wet sheets on their naked bodies, to melt snow around them.
Whenever I'm really upset, I reach for a cigarette.
With snow on the ground outside,
electrons
the monks
will not
began
flow
their
backwards
meditation.
on the needle. Between the
They
front
seek to
and
invoke
back
a
of the
spirit
needle.
In a frozen
the freezing cold.
This is the final regulation before the electrons flow to the end of the electrode.
With my father and whatnot. Lately, I just broke up with my boyfriend. It relaxed me when I was mad, or when I was going through a really rough time, so it just always relaxed me. It's like when you're a baby and you have like a blanket there.
The atomized particles.
You know, in retrospect, I
set out to create its own Deadwood Dick. Visitors asked about Dick, and they wanted to see him. The honor went to Richard Clark, who at least could claim that he was Dick. Clark had lived in the hills for years, and he looked the part. In 1927, Deadwood Dick visited President Calvin Coolidge in Washington as part of the campaign to convince him to spend his summer in the Black Hills. As the years passed, Dick and his friends sort of lost
ignition.
The particles' velocity or movement should be relatively soft, so they don't pass through the ionization field too fast.
While
The
Deadwood
operation
created
which were
fictitious
at the lowest
characters and
atomization
rewrote some of
airflow
his
I'd seen
will be the
myself.
most efficient.
But with king
When looking at
to
these
preserve the town's
parameters,
heritage.
the best atomization to use when considering particle size and velocity is centrifugal, air spray, and third airless spray. In review, uninhibited systems are available only in automatic isolated systems. Inhibited systems are available in both manual and automatic with voltage ranges up to 100.
In a situation like that, there's only one thing you can do. You just keep going, and you just keep thinking of where you get working.
It's something that I really don't need right now. I don't have the income. I can't keep it up for it to be something pleasurable. It's more like, wow, I've got a pack of cigarettes. That's what I'm going to do all weekend, sit around and smoke my cigarettes. I mean, it's a little strange.
Those in rank
Off, and it kept getting worse whenever I had a cigarette, and it started tasting awful.
affectation,
So
Must poke
wasn't
around.
dress, cuisine,
Continued to run their games, whether it was legal or not.
not only in France, but in all the courts of Europe.
His sheath cut off all communications with Mission Control. One last question remains.
Well, my family was really proud of me when I had quit before, which was last year. And I didn't tell them that I started smoking again because they were so proud. And my grandmother was actually the one person who was really proud of me. And so I'm actually pretty close to her. And we were going up to her house for the weekend. It was up at the cottage, and she was going to be up there, and I didn't really have any money that weekend, and I finished my last cigarette at the donut shop before, like right after school before we went up, and so I just decided not to buy anymore.
And you have to have enough confidence in yourself to say to yourself, I can do this, I'm a strong enough person and I want to do it. But nobody else can make you quit smoking.
can act as a capacitor.
Eileen was diagnosed with liver cancer in December.
Is the main gun resistor.
This gave her 3 months to live.
Remarkably, it had been the most accurate splashdown of any Apollo.
2 months later, out of desperation, Eileen went to see Don Copland. She could.
But there is a fourth safety design that is instrumental in reducing any ignition spark to a minimum. To be
told that I'd got my
able to meet all FM ignition tests.
Of that, and
design features are incorporated in the head.
As the 3 astronauts arrived on the carrier's deck, the ship's band burst into a rousing version of the Age of Aquarius.
Is transferring healing energy into her body. This thermal imaging camera shows heat variation. White signifies the warmest areas. Red, yellow, green, and blue indicate progressively cooler temperatures.
President.
At the Graco Engineering Labs.
Hands on my stomach. I mean, I really feel then as if I'm on fire.
I'm very, very fortunate that someone upstairs has selected me to be a channel, to be able to do this. And over the last 20 years, many hundreds of people have been very glad of that facility.
After only 4 months of healing sessions with Copland, Eileen's tumor had shrunk so much that she ceased chemotherapy. As of today, Eileen's cancer has been in remission for a year. Her doctor requires only occasional visits.
But, in the immortal words of Mark Twain, the reports of Deadwood's death were premature.
Couldn't visualize it.
1989, legalized gambling came to Deadwood, and the old town was off and running again. So here stands Deadwood, alive and well into her story, the real history of Deadwood.
Promised land, you know, to the Statue of Liberty. Beautiful, beautiful woman.
I said to Mother, what does she mean? Mother just hugged me and said, that means America.
She rises out of the waters of New York Harbor, a modern-day colossus of metal, the largest ever forged. To this day, the most enduring symbol of America's best hopes for itself. But like the millions of new Americans who have passed,
the suspect in custody lived in Kaylee's apartment complex, and she knew him.
Was not afraid of him. So he must have been either living in her immediate area or was hanging out in that area.
French liberals, America was the true torchbearer of France's lost democratic ideals. They longed for the fraternity that once linked Washington and Lafayette. Among them was a sculptor, Frédéric, about designing a monumental gift to the young nation.
Someday I will find it here again.
He wanted his gift to be the thing visitors saw in the world, so he chose Bedloe's Island as a suitable site.
I was desperate. I ripped my room apart.
Next to his new project, which took years.
To find one.
The statue was Bartholdi's greatest accomplishment. In France, he started making terracotta bronze models in increasing sizes. And then plaster was laid on top. In his Paris workshop, metalsmiths carefully hammered huge.
A shift in attitudes has certainly occurred, but perhaps a more fundamental transformation is also taking place. The evolution of the paranormal powers of our minds.
She handed out cigarettes, so I just took one like everybody else.
Pushing the gargantuan.
So, this is what you think old Deadwood was really like. Well, maybe it was,
sort of
maybe
like
it
just
wasn't.
bad.
Balked. Contributions were slow.
That period of time,
I stole some of my brother's cigarettes and went out to the front of the house hoping that she'd catch me, and she didn't.
The second section will
My
relate
best
the
friend
electrical
smoked,
terms
and
to
everybody
electrostatics. How an electrostatic ionization field is created.
You have all these there, but you're looking up to them because you have nobody else to look up to.
1834. Years before.
Of more than 225.
Near this spot, in 1886, a spearfish stonemason named Louis Thone, he claimed was Ezra Kine's last message, was carved on a slab of sandstone. I'll read a portion of it. Got all the gold we could carry. Indians got our ponies. I have lost my gun and nothing to eat. Indians hunting me. End of message. A controversy still rages among Black Hills historians as to the authenticity of the Thone stone. Several government expeditions tried and failed.
Decades to come.
With a relative amount of confidence, I would like to be an archaeologist. And she said, "Oh, no, dear, that's no
Diane
work for
kept
a
gold
girl."
seekers away. The mystery of gold ended when a military expedition led by General George A. Custer explored the Black Hills in the summer of 1874. Sent to locate sites for military posts, Custer allowed civilian prospectors to join the expedition, and they found gold. The earliest gold...
Attract.
Coming up at the 22nd mark, T-minus 20
Cape Kennedy, Florida, the 11th of April, 1970. On the launch pad is Apollo 13, bound for the moon. The countdown unwound.
We have ignition sequence start. Engines on, 5, 4, 3.
Meanwhile, experienced miners from earlier Western mining...
Felt like such a nobody.
Will now stand safely in a nearby museum.
Control Houston, we appear to have a good first stage at this point.
The negative charges tend to grab or attract to the positive charged objects.
Apollo 13, we everyone in there.
When I started smoking, it was kind of important for me to see myself and the way I looked.
When Apollo 13...
We will be dealing with moving charges.
100,000 miles from Earth, Mission Control told the crew, "We're bored to tears down here. Not for much longer."
Small stream which runs into Whitewood Creek below the days of 76 rodeo grounds. But there is another story.
The negative electrons. The force of the electrons is called...
Main B, bus undervolt. Roger, main B undervolt. We've had a problem here. This is Houston. Say again, please.
Of how much women have done over the years to advertise cigarettes, and I don't think it's fair, and I think it's sexist. advertisements don't sell cigarettes, they sell women.
Derek, something you said in the meeting today. Your suggestion that we target young women in the new cigarette campaign.
Yes, Lorette.
Let me explain an unspoken rule we have in the tobacco industry. We don't encourage young women to smoke.
Yes, but my suggestion was based on some very important market research.
Yeah. We've all read that. Young women buy a lot of cigarettes. Many women do. But we don't encourage them to smoke. We really don't have to.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Look, what is it that our advertising has spent the last 70 years convincing women smokers?
That the woman who smokes is an independent person in control of her destiny.
Exactly. Independent and sexy. And isn't that what every vulnerable teenage girl desperately wants to be?
Yes, but isn't peer pressure a significant factor?
Don't be naive. The pressures on women of any age.
De Nostradam, better known as the prophet Nostradamus. According to
smoking is a form of rebellion.
It doesn't matter to us whether women smoke to rebel or to belong. Either way, we do just fine.
But Nostradamus himself had warned against disturbing his eternal sleep.
Man who opens the tomb when it is found, and who does not close it at once, evil will come to him that no one will be able to prove.
A medallion is discovered. Inexplicably, it is engraved with the present date, the year 1700. 134 years earlier.
Okay, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. Not gonna lie to you. The switcher, the power adapter, was a little loose on the switcher, and the switcher actually went down. So that's what happened there. Just so you know, I just wanted to add this in here because, yeah, I think it's important to say goodbye sometimes. But, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and good evening.